Hello and welcome to Heat Networks with Chirpy Heat. I'm Christine, and this is the podcast for housing providers tackling all things heat networks. So, in every episode, we hear from someone who brings practical tips, insights, and guidance for heat network management, compliance, and technology. And this is all to help you run your heat networks efficiently and confidently. And today, it's very exciting. We have a friend of Chirpy Heat with us. We have Sarah Cole, Senior Operations Manager at Clarion Housing Group. And we're going to talk a bit about Clarion Housing Group's journey, heat network journey towards being regulation ready. So, hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. It's lovely to be able to join you this morning and talk about myself and Clarion and our journey. So I've been with the business for about 19 years now. So I am definitely part of the fixtures and fittings, and I've had various experience in the business. We set up our heat metering team back in 2020. My team now have grown so much that we lead on all of the heat networks, energy services, group energy contracts, electric vehicle charge points. It's grown substantially. I don't think anybody realised quite where we would be now. Clarion, just a little bit about Clarion. We've got we manage 125,000 homes, so we are the biggest HA in the UK. We've got, obviously that comes with a lot of heat networks, so we've got 160 heat networks serving about 8,000 customers, and then another probably 120 where our residents are connected to them, but we don't have any operating responsibility for those networks, so working closely with managing agents on those heat networks.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, 160 heat networks. That's a big portfolio to be working with. And can we take it back to 2020 then, when you first set the team up, and just maybe you could run us through what was going on then? What was it like?
Clarion have always had big heating contracts that manage the heat networks and domestic heating as well. But a lot of the other aspects, those that were on metering and billing and things, they weren't managed by one dedicated team. There were bits and pieces that were managed in various places around the business, much like a lot of other housing providers. So we set up what we referred to as the metering and billing team, just to try and learn a bit more, get some consistent approach across it, make sure that the residents were being supported correctly. It was a massive learning curve, one of which myself and the team are still very much on. We've sort of pulled knowledge, and anybody that would help and support, we have absolutely taken on this journey with us, to try and get us in a better place. But the biggest issue was that we didn't know what we didn't know. That obviously is a massive challenge, just to try and collect some information on what we owned and where it is and how it is managed and what the site setup is. It was a big challenge back in 2020.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, thank you so much. And so there's obviously a lot of common pressures, I would say, around housing providers or what they're facing right now, in terms of compliance with their heat networks. Yeah, I just wonder for yourselves, as you've gone through this and you're facing those challenges, have there been any particular turning points where you felt like, yeah, okay, now we're making some more progress? Like maybe you started to figure out what it was you didn't know, for example, or I don't know what it might have been, but yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing was definitely recognizing that we needed something in place, and getting the team set up. Housing providers are under great pressure continuously, to meet new regulations, obligations, and things that are brought out. MEES, warm homes, AWAB's law, just to mention a few that we're currently juggling. Well, none of us set out to be a utility supplier alongside all of that. And that's really what we're trying to get our head round at the moment. We knew we needed to do something, and the scope of it was growing really fast. We knew the regulations were coming. They were a good couple of years away at that point, but we knew it was coming, and it was going to have to be something that we needed to sort of get on board with. by far the best thing that we ever did was reaching out to Chirpy and getting you guys down to speak to our senior leadership team. So Rachel, Nicholas, Will came down to our offices and we had a meeting. They gave us did a brief sort of regulation ready where we were at that point, to sort of show that, what work we needed to do, what regulations were looking like. And I think at that point there was something like 560 days till we needed to be regulated, which was the January 26th. It feels like it was only yesterday, because that date has come, the actual go live date came around so quickly.
Yeah.
But them talking through the regulations with our senior leadership team, I think at the point that Nicholas mentioned that fines would be unlimited if we don't do this was when everyone went, okay, so we need to really take this on board and get some traction here. But it was by far the best thing that we did, because it got that buy-in from the team and the business at early stage for us to work further.
Which is so crucial, isn't it? I mean, you don't
Massively.
need that as a barrier when you're trying to do all these other things that need to be done as well, right? So, oh, that's brilliant to hear about how much that helped. Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to ask as well if there were any kind of practical steps that you took early on, which also would have made a difference to, how things were panning out, getting regulation ready.
I think definitely the first thing we needed to do was understand our heat networks. As I said, we didn't have good data. Data for everybody is always a stumbling block. So understanding our data, what we'd got, how the contracts were running, talking to Chirpy Heat, talking to other housing providers, what were they doing, what did they recommend, what had they done that they didn't recommend, all of that sort of thing was crucial. Chirpy Heat very much helped us look at the data, looked at what we'd got, and what we needed, and just helped that understanding process. I think that was really crucial in the early stages, was to understand both what we'd got, what we'd not got, and what we needed. And it just, one of the first things that we did with Chirpy Heat was get our customer supply agreements updated.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously now that's part of regulations, but actually we're ahead of it, because we've been using our updated versions that Chirpy helped write for us for a couple of years now. So it really put us in a good place to move forward.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to say, because as someone who has, I'm still learning lots about this area, but I'm going to say they're also known as heat supply contracts. As I understand it, that's kind of another way of referring to it. I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone what you were getting in place there, or hopefully not confusing anyone by throwing in another name for it. But that's really good to hear as well then. So, okay, so getting that in early was particularly useful, was it?
Definitely. Because we were able to start looking at where we'd got gaps and what sort of things that we needed to do. And as a housing association, all housing associations, we're good at looking after our residents. That's what we're here to do. And a lot of the sort of regulations and work around heat networks was just working on the basis that we've already got,
Yeah.
and moving them forward to sort of meet those obligations, the new obligations that were coming out. But yeah, definitely simple things, as I say, like getting those customer supply agreements, heat supply agreements up and running early, means that the teams are already used to dealing with them and what we need to do with them. And they're there to protect both the resident and the heat supplier.
Yes. Yeah.
They're a really important document, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And so obviously you've been working with Chirpy Heat since when the team was formed, by the sounds of it, or at least soon after. So um, I just wonder, or it would be great to hear a bit more about why that partnership has worked well.
Yeah, so I met Chris at a conference back in 2022. So it wasn't long after we'd set the team up, and we were just sitting at a table talking, and that was how our connection started. And I love the way Chirpy he work that everybody is so knowledgeable, and if there is something that you're not sure on, there's always someone else in the team that can answer the question. You're up to date with the regulations. You tailor the support for us. I think a lot of Chirpy Heat staff certainly originally came from housing providers, so without having to explain all the other obligations that we've got, and the limitations and things, Chirpy Heat are already on that page very much. They know that, we might have a very long wish list, but actually it's not necessarily realistic that we're going to be able to achieve all of that.
Yeah.
So that definitely is a massive help. The other thing I would say is that I always claim I am not technical. I'm an operations manager. I am not technical.
Yeah.
So Chirpy I've never felt that if I ask a question, I'm made to feel stupid. And you can ask any question, and they, whoever you're talking to will explain in the terms that I can understand, that the team can understand, that senior leadership can understand. Just providing that data and that explanation in whatever form it is. Now, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely do technical. You've got a fabulous technical team, so you can provide sort of that dual service, really. And again, there's so many documentations out there at the moment. So to have a partner that can help support through that is absolutely invaluable as far as I am concerned. That, and I think the other thing that especially Rachel has been great with is introducing us to others. So, we're not the only one on this journey. So to be able to talk to others that are in the same situation and having the same stumbling blocks or the same wins, it's great to be able to share that information with each other. At the end of the day, we're all trying to work to the same end goal, and Chirpy Heat definitely support with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing to hear about how, like, just hearing some of those details and how some of those individuals have really made a difference to that. So thanks very much for taking us through that as well. And I mean, with such a large portfolio like you have at Clarion Housing Group, I wonder, how do you, like, when it comes to some of the standard things that all housing providers are going to have to tackle, how do you tend to try and approach that now?
I think start early, as I've already mentioned. Having that head start, it is crucial. We've got some quite hefty project plans, and again, Chirpy Heat have really helped with that. So although they're project plans that we've put together, and we've got project teams internally that are supporting on that, to be able to sort of run them past, we work with Chris and Millie, who are both great at having a quick look at what we've got, telling me if I've missed anything. It's very easy to come quite blinkered in your own little world. So having those wider eyes across things to make sure that we're not missing anything, it is just great. As well as regulations, we've obviously we all manage the sort of energy crisis, which again feels like a long time ago now, but we all had to, pull resources together to do the EBDS registration.
Could you spell that one out for us as well?
So it's the energy bill discount scheme that the
Thank
government released to help support people on heat networks that didn't get the capping from the domestic providers. And we had to register all of our heat networks. And as we've already mentioned, we have quite a few. And at that point, there was no bulk upload or anything. And we already knew we weren't going to qualify for the discount due to the way we procured our energy, but we still had to register. And I think Chirpy Heat worked out that it would take 44 consecutive days for one staff member to do that. That's massive resources when your team is not huge. So Chirpy Heat again helped us with that, and updating the information and things. I think the other thing that we've really done is looking at lessons learned that I've already sort of touched on, not just our own, but other housing providers, local authorities, everybody that's going through this. So, if somebody else has tried to get some information data and found that they didn't need it, what that looked like for them. Can we learn from that? Can we sort of not make the same mistakes, and manage it in a slightly better way? And consistency, looking, as I say, trying to get contracts consistent, and once we've worked out how we're going to do it, make sure that we can roll it across all of our heat network so that everybody is getting the same, whether they're on a metering and billing network or whether it's the service charge network, and that sort of thing, and encouraging our managing agents to sort of do the similar sort of thing, so that every resident that's connected to a heat network is receiving that consistent support and service as they should do.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it makes a big difference for them and for yourselves, right? So it's just like end to end. It's got to be a massive improvement if things are consistent and at the level you want. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and you mentioned earlier about the readiness review. I think so. You had a regulation readiness review a few years ago, and then I think since then maybe you've done compliance planning as well. Um, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about any of the impacts of these, or have those impacted on your heat network portfolio, your own work, or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as Chirpy Heat did a basic readiness review for us back in 2023, and they've done it again since, which is great to see the progress that we've been able to make with that. But I think I already mentioned about knowing where our gaps are really important. So doing the regulation ready, although you might find some more gaps than you potentially hope for, at least you can then address them.
Yeah.
Not knowing is really difficult. So once we'd had that regulation ready, we've been able to then create compliance plans of what we need, how we need things to work, the work that we need to do. One thing for Clarion Housing is that we didn't have a way of identifying our heat networks in our systems, which obviously then means that the frontline staff that are managing with our residents on a day-to-day basis are somewhat blind if they don't have that information. So we've looked at putting flags and alerts on our system so that it shows quite clearly that a customer is on a heat network. We know that residents will call up and say that they've got problems with their boiler because it's a big white box on the wall, but actually it's not a boiler, it's an HIU, and they're on a heat network. So giving the teams that has really helped towards compliance, because we can make sure that resident is going down the right route to make sure that their inquiry is fulfilled.
Just call another acronym: heat interface unit, for anyone who wasn't sure.
There's so many acronyms.
I know.
We just have so many. Obviously we've had to look at a lot of our policies and review those. We again, as a housing association, we already have a lot of policies. I was really keen to tweak what we've got as opposed to reinvent the wheel as such and create new ones. So again, Millie has been great in helping with that, reading through what we've got, suggesting what we might need to add in and tweak, whether or not it's already sufficient, which in some cases it is. We don't need to make any changes. But having that overview again from somebody that's outside, a lot of the information I read, a lot of the acronyms, they make sense to me. It's my world. It's what I live in on a day-to-day basis. So to have somebody else's overview of that, to make sure that we're getting it right, is really important. Chirpy Heat also completed our last OPSS, which is I'm not sure what the acronym, what that means, but it was the reporting that we had to do before we've now moved over to Ofgem. So Chirpy Heat did that last submission for us, and again it gave us a real good point to look at the data that we'd got, try and iron out some sort of quirks that we'd got in that, make sure that we'd got all the information that we needed, that we knew we were going to then have to feed into, as I say, new compliance and Ofgem reporting and things like that. But yeah, it's just lots of data, lots of checking and making sure things are correct, and working out what we don't have and how we can move forward from that.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many priorities, I suppose sometimes they're going to feel like quite competing priorities. I would imagine we've talked a bit about that before, like it was actually with Millie. We had her on one of our podcast episodes, and we were talking about how to set your priorities for the year. And when it comes to balancing out compliance and efficiency, I don't know if they always go hand in hand, or if sometimes you have to sort of figure out which one you're going to prioritize over the other. But maybe we could talk a bit about that as well, like if there's any tips you have for any other housing providers on that front.
Again, yes, it is challenging to balance all of those needs. Clarion have a net zero policy that we're, in decarbonisation, and it's really important things that we need to work towards. So if we can tie together some of the heat network work that we're doing and do two at once, then that's a massive win for both resources and budgets and all of that, the sort of future planning. I mean, we've had 3 HNES, another acronym, which is the Heat Network Efficiency Study. So we've had 3 of those completed.
HNES, is it the funding? So
Yes.
heat network efficiency scheme, and then you do the study for it. Yeah, I'm with you.
That's it. So the optimization study, and then you can do the capital works afterwards. But we've done 3 studies with Chirpy Heat, and I'm really keen that the work that we do, not just with Chirpy Heat, but just in generally, we share across the business to get as much from it. There's no point in doing all these projects and looking at all this work and all this data if we're not actually using it. So trying to use it with the planned projects and what they're looking to upgrade. Can we roll what we've learned from those optimization studies out to other heat networks that are a similar sort of setup? Can we learn from any mistakes and things and make sure that the development team are looking at them and including them in the design and setup of new heat networks, so that we can pull all those projects and all those priorities together. Recently, Chirpy Heat have completed a large desktop analysis of all of our heat networks. A big bit of work, as you can imagine, for 160 heat networks. But again, can we use the findings from that to help with the decarbonisation planning and MEES and the warm homes and all of those sort of projects? Can we feed it in? And if those teams are doing research and work, can we feed that into the heat networks? Can we pick out of all of this, have we got like a common top 10 that we need to address? Let's look at those first. It's difficult, but we're trying to join all of those things up as best as we can. I think the other real difficulty with this is budgets, because as a non-profit housing provider, we don't have a bottomless budget. So Chirpy Heat have done some rough calculations and things on what sort of costs we could be looking at to meet regulations, and then again we can feed that into, well, can we use some costs that we've got earmarked for decarbonisation to also tick heat networks, and just working across, I think, again, a consistent, pulling everything together, looking at that wider picture, is definitely how we're trying to balance it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. Like it's clearly not just sort of reactive, scrabbling to get just over the line with compliance. I mean, it sounds like you're in a fairly decent place now. Well, very good place actually. But maybe you could talk a bit about just any reflections on where you feel like the heat network portfolio is now compared to in 2020.
I think, we are in a much better place. We're 6 years down the line now, and as I've already said, the learning curve has been rather steep, but the way we've approached things, the cross-team working that we've done, we are in a good place. I'm assured by Millie and Chris that we are in a good place with our regulation ready.
No, they wouldn't just
Um,
be saying that. So that's very like high praise. That's good.
I take comfort in it. I take
Yeah.
comfort in it. But yeah, we've made good progress. We're working through our project plan. We are not at the end yet. Obviously, we're still waiting for a lot of details for one reason, but you know, our understanding of what we've got, a site set up, how the customers are being provided with that heat, we understand 100% better than we did back in 2020. Our data is looking much better. I've already mentioned we've got things like the flags on our system now, so that the frontline team can see. I'm really lucky. I have a great team. Just to give them a shout out as well, that work on this and have really worked hard to improve all of that, and work closely with our metering and billing providers, other contractors, Chirpy Heat, you know, to try and pull all of that together to be in the place that we are today.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work from lots of people, but definitely paid off. So brilliant. Um, okay, and I guess lastly, for other housing providers, would there be any tips you have or encouragement maybe for where to focus their efforts?
I think, without sounding like a broken record, look at your data, do a gap analysis, work out what you haven't got, because that then gives you a foundation to work from, to make sure that you've got, you know, there's going to be a lot of data that's needed for reporting. So to look at that gap analysis, look at what you already know, and then you can work out where you need to be, and work out a plan, create a project plan, involve your senior leadership team, get their buy-in on this. To go back to the beginning, I say that is the best thing we did, because whenever I need to escalate anything, or we need to change business processes and things, senior leadership are on board already. They know why we're trying to do this, and support with it. So definitely do that. Networking events, talking to each other. It's a bit of a joke that I like a networking event. I do, but I absolutely what we can learn from each other in this process. I couldn't have done this without the support and the knowledge of those around me, both from other housing providers, local authorities, forum groups, Chirpy Heat, just talking to each other and working through what we need to know. I always come away from every networking event having learned something, or someone's spiked an idea that we need to go and look at something. I think it definitely get involved in the networking events, the webinars, and be a sponge. Take it all on board. It is definitely, and obviously, I've got to say, engage Chirpy Heat, because you know I couldn't have done what I've done with Clarion's compliance without that backup. To know that I've got Chirpy Heat, Millie, Chris, Rachel, Nicholas, well, all of you behind me and pointing me in the right direction when I get a bit lost is just invaluable, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. I hope that, people are sort of taking notes there. That's really valuable stuff. Of course, including contact Chirpy Heat. And at that point, actually, I will say if anybody does want any more information about how Chirpy Heat can support this journey to being regulation ready, or with further compliance wherever you're at, but supporting that journey, then you can email client.relationships@chirpyheat.com. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for your time. Thanks for just bringing all this knowledge that you have, and sharing your experience with Clarion Housing Group, and sharing how Chirpy Heat has helped that journey for yourselves as well. I hope it's been really useful for anyone listening, and I think it's going to be really, really lovely to hear for the people at Chirpy Heat to hear this, and how they've helped, and hear you put it in your words about what that support meant as well. I think is going to mean a lot to them. So thanks very much for coming along, and thanks for sharing all that.
You're very welcome. It's good to speak. Good catch up.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.